Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm James Hanson, Group Publisher of Federal and Technology Markets at GovExec and Vice President of NextGov, and your moderator for today's event, Cloud Innovation for Enterprise Solutions, sponsored by AWS, SAP, NS2, and Carahsoft, and produced by GovExec. Driven by rapid changes across the technology and security landscape, government agencies are increasingly adopting the latest cloud solutions across their enterprise. While the advantages brought about by the adoption of these capabilities are plentiful, government leaders are trying to identify the necessary best practices to expedite that adoption. Our speakers will discuss the core benefits of these latest cloud applications, what to consider when adopting, and how the shifting relationship between government and technology is changing across the federal and government landscape. And I can't be more excited to have this terrific conversation with a panel of government and industry experts and their perspectives. Joining me today is Martin Quinlan, Director of Business Integration at the Department of the Interior, Stephen Hernandez, Chief Information Security Officer at the Department of Education, and Hunter Downey, Vice President of NS2 Cloud, SAP National Security Services. Thank you all so much for being here today. As we dive in, can you tell our audience a little bit more about your organization, its mission, and what cloud means to you in your role? Stephen, let's start with you.
Sounds great, and thank you for having me and this esteemed panel here today. What a great topic. And most folks know the U.S. Department of Education for one of our primary missions, which is about educational opportunity. Doesn't matter where you may find yourself in your life or where you may find yourself mentally, physically, et cetera. We're going to make sure that if you are in the United States, that you have an opportunity to get that indelible improvement in your life education. That's one side of the big coin. The other side, which is also around that educational opportunity, is making sure that we have financial aid available. And that's, of course, federal student aid and the programs therein. And when you look at that side of the portfolio, if you were to look at the United States accounts receivable, we're the largest piece of that, $1.6 trillion on the books. And any year we broker up to another couple $1 trillion in funds in support of education and making sure that this nation is keeping up. When you look at us from that perspective, we're very much like a large bank. If we were ranked by accounts receivable, we'd be easy in the top 3 in the United States, typically in the top 10 globally, depending on markets. And so we have a very financial compliance and financial risk focused portfolio over there. You bring the two together and it's just an incredibly unique opportunity in terms of how we drive educational progress in this country. And from a cybersecurity perspective, it's both, what's going on in the educational policy space, but two, folks want our financial resources and assets. And, the number of times I get asked, hey, you guys getting attacked and my student loans being erased wouldn't be a bad thing, right? That's the going joke I get at happy hour, but that's a very real threat for me. It's certainly an economic impact to the nation if we can't make sure that accounts receivable is kept safe. So thanks for having me here today.
Thank you, Stephen, and thank you for your service. Martin, you mind going next?
Sure. My name is Martin Quinlan. I work for the Department of the Interior. A lot of people don't actually know what the Department of the Interior is, but they recognize a lot of our bureaus. So like National Park Service, U.S. Geological Survey, Bureau of Indian Affairs, Fish and Wildlife Service, things like that. We have 2,400 operating locations, and we really work at that level. So when it comes to things like the cloud, it's a little hard for a lot of people in the Interior to really think about, well, how does that help me? Because I just care about my dam that I'm working at, or my park, or my refuge, or something like that. But what it's really helping us do is to bring people together so we can focus on what their true unique needs are, as opposed to what their legacy business processes have been. So that's really the big push for us. It's a catalyst to have new conversations about how we can help people within Interior and do the great service that we do within Interior.
Thank you, Martin. And I'm excited because it's kind of two unique perspectives in terms of like, you have this enterprise where all these different other components that are kind of operating sometimes independently, of independent missions. And then Stephen, a lot of it is driven straight from the core of the Department of Education with FSA. So I'm excited to continue our conversation around it. Hunter, do you mind giving a little bit more background on yourself and how SAP NS2 is supporting agencies like education and DOI?
Sure. First, thanks so much, James. And I appreciate your time here in this portal and being able to participate. Stephen, Martin, I also want to applaud the fact that just the concept of the mission and driven out to everyone across the nation of how you contribute, that's fantastic, and it makes a significant difference. For me, I represent the product team for SAP NS2 for Cloud Solutions. So a lot of folks are familiar with SAP, one of the largest software manufacturers in the world today. But in reality, I think Martin said it best, it's become a cloud evolution. So our team represents the cloud solutions designed for federal agencies and public sector organizations of how to adopt these new innovations and address really the business outcomes for how they can take it within their own organizations and agencies.
Thank you, Hunter. And so let's circle back to the top, Stephen. I'm going to start with you. What are some of the benefits that the Department of Education has already gained from where it is in its cloud journey and where it's going? And certainly you bring a unique lens from a security perspective, and we'll dive into that a little deeper in a few minutes. But just in general, as you're working alongside the CIO and the team over there, what are some of the benefits that you guys have seen already?
Wow. So the Department of Education is about we are 100% cloud. And so while most folks are working on data center consolidation, we're actually working on cloud consolidation because when we said cloud first, a few years ago, we took the ball and ran with it. Where that has led us, though, is we just have incredible responsiveness to a very changing and dynamic environment. When COVID hit, lots of folks struggled to realign their infrastructures, their resources. For us, it was really just a matter of making sure our contracts were correct and that we had the right ways to mold and shape our environment to respond to those changes. Additionally, as I noted, a part of that other couple trillion we broker, for example, we had tremendous funds going out through the American Recovery Act, the CARES Act, et cetera. And in each one of those situations, we had to stand up portals quickly. We had to stand up applications quickly, and we had to do it right because, today's aid package is tomorrow's audit, and rightfully so. The American taxpayers deserve to know that the money that they sent out to do good is being used that way. And so the cloud and the elasticity of the cloud and the dynamic nature of the cloud allowed us to stand up these capabilities in record time. Whereas, if we were waiting on the normal supply chain constraints of getting in infrastructure or standing up an appliance, or even on the security side, right? Well, I need the pizza box in the data center, or we can't turn the system on. We would have been months behind, maybe even years, the way some of the supply chain constraints are working right now. So cloud really saved our bacon in many cases, and we're fortunate to be there. I think the biggest challenge we have as we go forward with cloud is just the optimization. The development, the evolution is just so rapid in that space. What was great yesterday is okay today, and there's better things out there. And it's balancing the optimization of how do we continue to continuously get better and use better cloud services while consolidating our cloud footprint as well. Because if we have a few core large cloud service providers or niche cloud service providers that do what we need, that's a smaller attack surface for me to defend. And so, of course, that's always on the front of my radar is complexity and attack surface are the two biggest enemies that I think I have to worry about in the cloud. Fortunately, here again, I've seen tremendous evolution in the security side as well. So getting data in about what's happening and being able to affect that cloud security fabric is becoming better every day. So I'm optimistic for what the future holds for us.
That's fantastic. Martin, you mentioned your cloud evolution. Can you talk about some of the benefits that DOI has already experienced in its current cloud evolution and what you think some of the benefits will be going forward?
Sure. So for my program, we run basically the administrative backbone of Interior. And we're involved with all of those 2,400 operating locations. And we're involved really with most of what Interior does. But we really do have, Interior has that diverse mission that we were talking about earlier. So from an application point of view, we have just a ton of different applications out there. So we have people like our program that has started, we were one of the first with an infrastructure as a service implementation. And that was 8 years ago. And it's evolved a lot. The whole cloud environment has evolved a lot from there. So one of the big benefits of the cloud, no matter whether you're talking about infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, is paying for consumption as opposed to capacity. Like Stephen was talking about, making sure you have all those pizza boxes, right? Well, we're not in the IT industry. That's not what we do. We take care of, we steward relationships with the tribes. We take care of the water in the West. We take care of historical stuff and critters and things like that. That's what our mission is, right? So it's not IT. So having providers, whether you're talking infrastructure as a service or software as a service, that's what they do in real life, makes it a lot better for us. We can focus on the consumption. We can focus on improved disaster recovery, improved cybersecurity, like Stephen was talking about, controlling growth, but also being able to scale up and scale back down. Excuse me. For us, the future really is more software as a service. And it can be as mundane as email and file sharing, right? Everybody knows about Teams, everybody knows about Google, those types of things. And one of the big benefits to us as the IT folks in Interior is that is breaking down the barriers for just the regular folks in Interior, because now they understand, and they're doing this in their private life too. They understand that they can just go to the cloud, and it's not some crazy thing. It's stable, and we can do these things. So there's a lot of benefits for us, but that's really where we've been and where we're going right now.
Great, thanks, Martin. Hunter, you heard some examples there. How do cloud service providers help government today, and how has that changed in recent years?
I got to highlight a few key points said by Stephen and Martin, because it's pretty incredible. First, I think Stephen said something that is very, very important: the supply chain impact. I want to take a step back and just kind of reorient to the cloud, because I think the term gets used a lot, and then people use it differently and they see it differently. So we're the product management team, and think of it this way: SAP identifies a new solution. We are a manufacturing arm to prepare this solution in a secure way and prepare it for federal agencies. What Stephen said was so critically important. For many years, especially the last 10 years, an organization would buy on-premise software. There'd be a procurement of hardware, and we'd go through an implementation. Last year was a challenging year, but the impact on the supply chain is something that we all feel. We hear about lumber shortages or certain materials that we want to buy. We're not used to this issue, that when someone wants to implement and execute an IT strategy, that we don't have the materials to do that. Think of it on our end, right? We are a product management team. We produce products, enterprise capabilities, financials, budgets, analytics. So from a big picture perspective, we're buying high volume of cloud infrastructure to deploy SaaS solutions. And I think Martin said it well, right? We're trying to pivot the organization to identify a business outcome on how people use it. And let's not worry about the infrastructure behind the scenes. That is a commodity. We want to focus on usage. I like how Martin talked about that different organizations using the capability. All of us are no longer in the business of how it's made. We're really about propagating these capabilities out to people that need it and use it, which will help their daily lives.
Thank you for that, Hunter. And Martin, I'm going to just pivot back to you. What are some lessons learned that you can take from this transition and this journey that you could share with our audiences, moving and migrating all these different applications to the cloud?
That's a good question. The one of the biggest things is making sure, like Hunter was talking about, the capabilities are there. So who you partner with really matters. And you got to make sure that who you're partnering with has all the capabilities that you need, and you understand where they're growing also. Because you're not buying for today, you're buying for 5 years from now, right? So you got to make sure that they have the capabilities to grow with you. I think one of the other big lessons learned is that change is hard. Everybody knows that. But people make the change. Systems don't make the change. So we always got to make sure that we have the right change champion there. That's not unique to the cloud necessarily, but we can't have our change champion afraid of the technology. We have to make sure that that change champion understands and really has that buy-in from the get-go, so that we can get the folks to focus on the capabilities. A lot of times in the past, we'd focus on, something like the cloud or some new application was going to help us standardize. Well, people get afraid of that. They think they're not going to get what they need. So we need to focus on what their business needs are and what their unique needs are, and show how we can still support that, even though we are going to a more standardized type of solution.
Yeah, and to kind of carry on the original theme is we talked about in the opening remarks, is how the relationship between government and technology is changing. And to your point, Martin, is that there's a lot of people that don't understand necessarily all of the changes to the technology and the benefits and value. So Stephen, I know the Department of Education, as you said, is all in the cloud. And it has been. You weren't there when the cloud first mandate came out, but have transitioned since Cloud Smart has come out. How have you seen cloud technology change? And then Hunter, I certainly want to go back to you with this same question.
So I'll echo that evolution of, we started a lot of platform as a service and infrastructure, but now, frankly, almost the first right of refusal is software as a service. And that works fantastic because it abstracts just so much of the technological, in some cases debt, or in some cases just the technological burden off of the agency to the provider. Where sometimes we find challenge, though, is, for example, in the security space, I still need risk visibility and risk parity across all my platforms. And I have some cloud service providers that are like, hey, we go above and beyond FedRAMP. You want like machine-to-machine data feeds, we will make that happen for you. You want POAM information to store in your GRC tool, not a problem. Very forward thinking, very willing to partner with us so that when we look across, we have a very high fidelity in terms of risk in that particular environment. And we've got other cloud providers in our portfolio that, they're kind of stuck back in the early days where they're like, no. I have to do FedRAMP. That's my bare minimum, and that is as far as I'm going to take it. And that's what you get. And the sad part of the story for them is, our requirements are going to continue to move towards zero trust architecture and getting that near real-time visibility. And if they can't meet it, they're going to find us moving our workloads to people who compete and can win in those type of environments. So I think that'll be a wake-up call for folks, especially as we go into zero trust architecture and implementing that strategy and the visibility and control that it requires a department or an agency to have within a cloud environment, whether it's SaaS infrastructure or platform.
Yeah, that's certainly a huge shift and really a directive from the administration and agency leadership. So I know that's also a journey that's going to kind of run parallel with cloud. Hunter, how has cloud technology changed from your view?
So I think Martin kicked it off well. Everything needs to start from what's the business driver? What are we trying to accomplish? And once everyone identifies the new business capability they're trying to incorporate within their agency, within their domain, That really is the first step. Now Stephen said something also that was very interesting. Many years ago, 10 to 15 years ago, it was very much a line of business conversation. Someone would look at procurement solutions, someone would look at financial solutions, and individuals would manually assemble multiple solutions to integrate. And in the cloud world, it's even more complex because think of it this way. Every product has its own life cycle. Every product, when we think software as a service, may be secured in a different way. When Stephen talked about the FedRAMP component, he's right? That is just an entrance way. Where all the cloud solutions are going is a universal way to secure multiple cloud solutions that can be adopted by federal agencies. This is critical. This is Stephen's point, is that if we can do it in a universal way and put the security organizations need to be successful, not just to comply, and we can say we can do it across preserving HR information, budget information, financials, and procurement. Then from a security side, they're protected and everyone understands how they're protected. But from a business side, we're able to outreach these capabilities. Here's the drawback. If you don't take this model, here's the problem. The problem is that in the world of cloud, it's about securing two things: where it lives and where it goes. It's a plumbing problem. So if you don't have a universal model, agencies are at risk of data leakage. And that's really the problem over the next 3 years that everyone is working through.
Yes, Martin.
I just want to build on something that Hunter just said about and Stephen was talking about this with the universal access. It's like right now in the pandemic, people have gotten used to using Zoom and things like that, right? So it's leveled the playing field in an organization between people who are in the office and remote, and nobody cares what time zones anybody is in anymore, all that sort of stuff, right? It's just meet me at, right? Well, by using software as a service, it's also a way for us to break down the organizational barriers, because we can use that same idea of being able to meet at an application. So if we have to share data across organizational boundaries, or if we have a business process that crosses organizational boundaries, it makes it easier for us to share an application. And all of the security that Stephen and Hunter have talked about are built into the application. So that's a huge opportunity for us as cloud services continue to evolve.
And Stephen, staying on the security lens here, how has security, or does security and data sovereignty help customers in their move to the cloud?
Yeah, boy, that's a big one, because early in even the cloud first days, there was lots of discussions around data sovereignty and where can the data centers be? Because at the end of the day, the cloud is still a server in someone's basement somewhere. That's the old joke. And that has implications. The soil your data physically resides on grants a lot of legal authority and power. And one of the things we had to sort through early in our discussions about cloud and what it meant to be in FedRAMP, et cetera, was the fact that if the United States could not get legal jurisdiction directly to the data, we were going to have problems considering competition in that space. And I think that that's carried through. I think that's now more or less a foregone conclusion that if you're doing business with the US government, that data is going to be on US soil. But understanding where and how your data is getting routed through the cloud, I love the plumbing analogy, because in so much it is that. It's where is the data going and in what condition. You have to be aware of that, and you have to take careful consideration of that when you're deploying your cloud services, because it's very easy to select additional regions. It's very easy to select additional locations. And in some cases, it's done with the best of intentions. It's like, well, geez, I needed a 5,000 mile disaster recovery range, and this was the data center that had it. I didn't quite think about, geez, that was over in this part of the world, which isn't quite friendly to us. But those type of things have to get sorted. And then as we go forward, in the United States, we have the Privacy Act, and there's certain controls and actions we take there. But, if we move data into Europe, if we move data into Asia, if we move data into Africa, other places, all of a sudden, just by virtue of the data being there, there's sovereignty concerns, and there's also concerns about the legal systems that'll be necessary to go through and actually act on the data if we need to. And the final piece of that, which gets more into the counterintelligence side, in the United States, we've got the CIA, we got the NSA, we've got all these wonderful agencies and capabilities that are frankly out there, and part of their mission is to protect us and make sure that our if they see things, they loop in the right folks, et cetera, especially if it's foreign engaged. We have data in other countries. We no longer have those assurances. And frankly, some of those same apparatus or equivalents in those countries are now going to be turned towards us and seeing, well, what can they learn about us? And so it's a big shift. And so kind of from the cybersecurity specter, where we intersect that with the sovereignty, it was a huge discussion, but even today, as we think about resilience, especially in servicing a global workforce, it continues to be a hot topic.
Martin, do you have any data sovereignty issues when dealing with tribal territories?
Not that I know of. I'm not an expert in that area, though, I have to admit.
No worries. That was more curiosity from my perspective. Hunter, why don't you bring us home as we get close to our time around, how does security actually benefit and accelerate the adoption of cloud?
That's good. And I want to start with Stephen's point. I want to talk about the importance of data sovereignty. Your cloud solution needs to live on US soil supported by US persons. And some might say, well, why do I need this requirement? Think of it this way. If you're traveling and you go to a country that is unstable, would you feel comfortable giving your banking details to pay for something? You probably wouldn't, because you're not protected by the US laws. So the number one requirement right now is organizations want cloud solutions with US data sovereignty because they want to be protected by federal mandates. That's critical. Now, to the other point you mentioned, James, which I think is really important, is security is a word that gets generalized. Is this secure? How do we secure it? And I think Stephen did a nice job talking about there's multiple layers of this. The key point when it comes to securing cloud solutions is a partnership with federal agencies. As a cloud product provider, we have to be completely transparent for how we secure a federal agency's workloads, and we have to work lockstep together. In essence, each agency has the best of individuals focusing on protecting their enterprise. And we have to come to the table and bring that bench strength to do it in a way that these organizations need to be successful. And it is not at a solution basis. It is a situation where we have to talk, just as Martin identified earlier, business outcomes, how we secure these outcomes, and to this point of what was said by Stephen, how they talk to one another. So that's the excitement, I think, where the industry is about to go. This is really the paradigm of when we think of security, this is something that we work in partnership and in tandem to make sure we get it right. But most of all, I want to reside it back to this key point. It is really about the principles of data sovereignty, because it's not a tool to make this happen. This is not an instrument to log or an antivirus or malware. It is multiple faceted strategy to preserve the most mission information across these agencies.
Thank you for that, Hunter. And Stephen, Martin, thank you for participating. Thank you for your service to our great nation. I'm actually, there's so many agencies that are at different points in their journey. Many of them are on the webcast today watching this, and I think the insights that you've shared only creates more energy around the opportunity that going to the cloud provides for agencies in advancing mission outcomes. So thank you again for your time today. We are going to have a quick wrap up shortly following this, so please stay on the line, stay on the monitor, and we'll have some more insights for you here shortly. Now here to continue our conversation are two of our event underwriters. Kevin Gallagher is the Hyperscaler Partner Manager at SAP National Security Services, and Keith Brooks, the Director and Head of Technical Business Development for AWS Government Regions at Amazon Web Services. Kevin and Keith, thank you for joining me. I'm really excited to build on what was a great conversation between Stephen, Martin, and Hunter, and get your perspectives on cloud innovations happening in public sector. So let's start there in terms of what we just heard. What was your biggest takeaway from that conversation? And Kevin, I'm going to start with you if that's okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm very excited to work with thought leaders like Stephen, Martin, Hunter, and obviously Keith and yourself, James. I mean, that's one of the things I love about my job, is that I get to learn something new every day. It hadn't occurred to me until I heard Stephen and Martin just discussing their needs, but I think NS2 can really act as a shared service for federal agencies for deploying SAP workloads in the cloud, for securing, maintaining, and ensuring that they have a good availability. And that's so critical. We know AWS is going to have a great infrastructure SLA, that they have the ability to FedRAMP certify the infrastructure, but our clients need their security extended to the actual solutions, the operating system, the database. And I think Stephen made a really good point that security isn't a single prong approach. There's multiple tiers to that. And they need the solutions to be up and running. So we provide an application uptime of 99.7 from an SLA perspective, supported by US persons on US soil. And we heard how critical that is for our clients as well. And we've deployed these critical applications for over 100 clients. So it's really one of our core competencies, so it doesn't have to be one of our clients.
Yeah, no, I agree with that one. Keith, how about you? What did you take away?
First of all, thank you for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity. And I thought it was a fascinating conversation. I would say there are two key takeaways for me. One was hearing both of them talk about cloud as an enabler, right? It's always refreshing to hear government agencies get beyond thinking of cloud as this special thing on the side. Both of those gentlemen clearly articulated that cloud is part of their journey, and they're really focused on not just some of the kind of early benefits of cloud, which tended to focus on things like cost reduction and things like that, but they were talking about enabling their organizations, enabling workflows, and actually solving problems, which is very refreshing to hear. Because what we've seen over the last number of years is government agencies really adopting that, right? Really looking at embracing cloud and cloud-based solutions to solve very specific business or mission critical needs. And hearing that articulated was very refreshing, and I think spot on. The second thing is how they both talked about security, and not looking at security as a blocker to cloud, but embracing security and really figuring out how they can take the power of the cloud and third-party solutions running on the cloud to improve their security posture and to ensure that they're supporting the mission, they're supporting their operations in a secure manner, and using cloud to push that forward and enable that. So I would say those were my two biggest takeaways. And for both the Department of Interior and the Department of Education, it was very refreshing to hear them kind of, emphasize those points in their cloud journey.
Yeah, and kind of building on that, Keith, if we look at, and certainly Stephen talked about it in terms of the impact that the pandemic has had and the ability to quickly have the compute resources and IT resources available. So how does using AWS and specifically AWS Gov Cloud, how can you ensure IT resources are available quickly and securely to help agencies achieve their mission, whether it is respond to the pandemic or just their day-to-day operations?
Yeah, so at AWS, security is and will always be our top priority. Internally, we often refer to it as priority zero, which emphasizes just how we think about security here at AWS. And it's important to note that our core infrastructure is built to satisfy the security requirements of the military, of global banks, and other high sensitivity organizations throughout the globe. Um, it's important to note that the actual infrastructure and services themselves, the offerings, as well as the supply chain, have actually been vetted to handle up to top secret workloads from the government. So that's an important point from a security perspective. And this applies to AWS GovCloud as well. In addition to those benefits, we give customers a physically and logically isolated set of infrastructure and services so that they can run their most sensitive and most regulated workloads in the cloud. So they get the benefits of the cloud plus the compliance that they need for their critical workloads. Whether it's ITAR requirements or FedRAMP High, DoD SRGs levels 4 and 5, CGIS, FIPS, or CMMC, GovCloud gives our customers and government agencies specifically purpose-built infrastructure and services to address their needs and their requirements. So they get the benefits of the cloud to meet their high compliant needs. And it's important to note with GovCloud as well, they still get the same ability to spin up and access on-demand resources as their workloads require it, right? So they get the ability to run fast and operate with agility, plus the security and the compliance that we give them. So it's really the combination of those two things that give our customers not only the security, but the ability to operate in a speedy manner, particularly as their government agency mandates and operations and workloads require.
And Kevin, it just piggybacking on some of Keith's, security questions, because in comments is that, we heard a lot from Stephen. Obviously, his role at Department of Education dictates that. Hunter as well provided some great insights around data sovereignty, supply chain risk. What else would you add in terms of how SAP NS2 is like addressing some of those security challenges?
Yeah, thanks for the question, James. I mean, I think building on what Keith was just saying, national security services is in our name, right? So certainly security is always top of mind for our clients and for NS2 as well. And like we heard in the comments from Stephen and Martin, security has many different layers and it has to be a holistic approach. So of course, it starts with having the resources that understand the regions and the services and the authorizations that AWS provides to start with, and inheriting those and bringing those into the application level as well. NS2 works with attestation organizations like the JAB to obtain FedRAMP certification at the application layer as well. On top of that, we provide automation to consistently deploy and harden the posture of the implementations. We have ongoing vulnerability management, security patch management, architecture that not only secures the data when it's stored, but it's also when it's in transit, external security audits through 3 PAOs, integration with federal tooling and STIGs, leveraging STIGs. So it really is a multi-tier approach. Starts with building on the AWS GovCloud infrastructure and then building additional security on top of that.
And sticking with you, Kevin, I think Martin made an interesting comment around, trying to meet the mission while not making IT part of the, end user operators job, right? So how have you helped clients do that? Like take that responsibility off of essentially the user delivering the mission?
Yeah, so this has been a real focus on NS2 because our goal is to remove all of the complexity in the move to the cloud and the required figuring out of what kind of infrastructure they need, what kind of deployment they need to take by working closely with SAP engineers, AWS. We have an R&D, engineering, operations, and support teams that are really all there to help that move from on-premise into the cloud. And we help simplifying the decisions around determining the correct sizing of the compute, the memory, storage, networking, what kind of high availability disaster recovery infrastructure is needed. Stephen talked a little bit about making sure that you make the right choices there. And once the landscapes are deployed, our support provides 99.7% uptime at the application layer as well, which is essential to being able to achieve the mission, is to have the actual applications running. And our customers have come to us and asked for additional services as well to support their cloud journey. So we've developed cloud application services. We have custom scope and fixed scope offerings. So, I mean, just as one example, taking over the regression testing process and taking that off of the plate of what the IT organization needs to do, so we can really tailor our service offerings. So the IT organization can focus on being more strategic and working on innovation.
And Keith, kind of along the same lines, how does AWS help its customers, get over some of those security concerns? How do you help them ensure that the data and applications are secure, that they're available and compliant, so that you can take some of that pressure off of them?
Yes, as I mentioned before, we start with security. It's at the foundation of everything that we do. And while security can be a blocker, we oftentimes find that government agencies actually improve their security posture when they move to the cloud and to the AWS cloud specifically. It all starts with the shared responsibility model, which delineates AWS responsibilities, namely the host operating system, the hypervisor, all the way down to the physical infrastructure, from our customer responsibilities. And then from there, you look at the deep set of security tools that the platform is backed by, over 200 security, compliance, and governance-related services and features, in addition to compliance and security tools and resources and deep expertise to help our customers move fast and to do so and to architect in a secure and compliant manner. Combine that with the global infrastructure, 25 regions, 81 availability zones, and 11 local zones. That gives customers not just the ability to architect for high availability, but the ability to do so in a highly compliant manner. So it's really the combination of those elements that give customers the security and the global footprint they need to operate at scale and in a secure fashion.
And we heard Martin talk about like the next phase of their journey is moving more towards software as a service that allows, government to focus again, all around the mission and not having to build the IT infrastructure themselves. How does using AWS and GovCloud help accelerate the adoption of software as a service services? And then as a follow-up, how do you help providers achieve authorizations like FedRAMP required to take advantage of SaaS offerings?
Yes, so we spend a lot of time understanding our customer needs and their requirements. As a matter of fact, 90% of our roadmap comes directly from customer input. And we use that same input to determine how we work with AWS partners to ensure that we're bringing best of breed capabilities to include SaaS to our customers. And I think SaaS is a great example of that, right? So ISVs and software as a service companies build their products on AWS GovCloud because they can then bring their specialized and unique capabilities purpose-built for customers' missions or their business workloads, and combine that with the compliance and the security that we bring with AWS GovCloud. So whether it's business productivity, infrastructure management, ERP, CRM, security, or platform management, SaaS companies do bring those specialized workflows together so that our customers can really accelerate their focus on using third-party tools and solutions to address their mission. And for AWS, our focus is on, as we work with SaaS companies, how do we speed their time to compliance? Because we jointly want to make sure that our customers have access to not just secure and compliant solutions, but solutions that are purpose-built for their workloads and their workflows so that they can spend less time managing software and more time executing their missions. In terms of what we bring to bear to help SaaS companies do that, there are a few things. There are programs such as ATO on AWS, which is a program that is focused on helping SaaS companies architect and configure and deploy SaaS solutions in a way that addresses the authorization controls of their respective programs. So whether it's FedRAMP or DoD SRG or others, all the way to things like the AWS compliant framework for federal and DoD workloads, which automates the ability for SaaS companies to spin up environments and automate kind of the infrastructure provisioning in a way that addresses the security controls that our government agencies care about. And for SaaS companies that require kind of higher touch solutions, we have a wide variety of expertise, whether it's security and compliance solutions architects or professional services or the AWS security assurance team, so that we can provide our SaaS customers and our SaaS partners with the ability to provide the expertise so that they can architect and deploy and operate highly compliant solutions running on top of AWS GovCloud.
That's fantastic, Keith. So to kind of bring us home, Kevin, we've heard a lot between our previous panel and the conversation between both Kevin and Keith, yourself and Keith, a lot around mission, a lot about this changing relationship between government and technology, and taking a lot of the technology burden off of government agencies to meet that mission. So as you look at NS2, what role do you guys play in helping organizations achieve just that and outcomes as they're looking to the cloud?
Yep. So I think the key here is focusing on the results that our clients are driving towards. I mean, that's the reason that they're using an infrastructure, they're using solutions as they're trying to get a result, right? And to deliver on that, they need the best-in-class enterprise applications, which we're able to provide for better visibility to financials, more accurate budgeting, more transparency to real-time analytics, a better employee experience, whatever that is they're looking to deliver in order to achieve their mission. And to deliver on these goals, the applications need to be up and running, right? That's of a major importance. They need to be secured, they need to be patched and up to date. And that's what we really do in a SaaS model, like the one that Martin and Stephen referred to.
And that's all the time that we have. To our audience, thank you so much for tuning in today. Thank you, Kevin and Keith, again, for your insight and perspectives and your time. And thank you for the work that you do in support of government mission. Special thank you to AWS and SAP NS2 for bringing all of us together.